In the sort of years of thinking in terms of forecasting and master planning, many rounds of community engagement and feedback for Logan Central, there were 4 key themes that have been identified through that. 4 very, very broad, but I think very great directions for us to follow today, and we'll be framing some of our actions today around those themes. And as we think about our big ideas, I want to introduce these 4 themes, and I would love you to think about which of the themes your idea might fall into. We've got some boards around the room that have those themes on them. And I'll introduce those in a moment, because I'm sure, unless you've got a brilliant eyesight, you can't see the heading from where you're sitting. But let me just introduce the themes first of all, because these really come from many rounds of consultation and stakeholder engagement in trying to capture what is the essence of Logan Central. And the first of those is context and custodianship. And this is really about built environment. It's about public spaces, social and green infrastructure. So Logan City, it's a place of hills and rivers. It's got 2 major rivers. Just stand up for a second. Now, bear with me. I want just stand up. I want to ask you a question about how many parks you think there are in Logan. Okay? So if you think that there are more than 50 parks, no, sorry, I'm going to have to do that the other way around, sorry. If you think there, I've got you all to stand up, and now I've got the order of my numbers wrong. So sit down if you think, actually maybe just sit down because I can't work this out. You're all going to be standing. That was just a moment to remember of brilliance for today. But that was going to be a great exercise where I got you to think. But let's just try hands up if you think there are more than 50 parks in Logan. Keep your hand up if you think there are more than 100. Keep your hand up if you think there are more than 500. Keep your hand up if you think there are more than 800. Keep your hand up if you think there are more than 1,000. Close. There are 924 parks in Logan. That's a lot. It's also a pretty big area, bigger than Singapore, we heard this morning. So context and custodianship, this relates to public realm, social infrastructure, which Jim just gave us an introduction to, the community centres, the markets, the kindergartens. So if your big idea for Logan relates to something to do with parks, community infrastructure, built environment, public realm, then that's the theme for you, and that one is on this side of the room. Connections is the next one. Now we've also seen, if you had a look at the 3D model and the video show this morning, that Logan's really connected. It's really well positioned between Brisbane and Gold Coast and the port, and that's why there's a logistics hub here, because it's well connected that way. It's got a railway. It's right near the major freeways. But it's also connected in terms of its facilities with art galleries and high schools and police stations and an emerging town centre. So this connections theme is really around access and movement, and how do we get around within Logan Central and get from Logan Central to other places. So if your big idea relates to connections in some way, then that is also on this side of the room. The next one is choice and character. And this one is, referring to how do we evolve if we're going to double in growth in the next 30 years, if we're going to have 500,000 people living in Logan or more, what kind of diversity and choice do we have? Choice of housing in particular, but also in land use, in built form. Do we have choice between higher density, lower density? We have choice between affordability and higher income choices. How do we create choice of jobs in this area so that you can live and work and stay, and that your children can grow up and live and work in this area as well? So choice and character relates to diversity of jobs and housing opportunities. And that's on that side of the room. I'll come back to which side of the room because that's just like confusing, but there's we've got to have it somewhere because there's so many of you. The final one is collaboration and creativity. And this really refers to, to boil it down to governance, but governance meaning all kinds of things. So this is not just about local government. This is around the very many different mechanisms of organising that are important for a successful place and a successful community. Could be your local community gardens governance structure. It could be the way that we actually organise ourselves to overcome volunteer burnout. It could be the way that councils and communities connect, or other business communities, traders organisations, the way that planning relates to governance and implementation. So if your idea relates to governance and management operations in some way, then that theme is on that board too. So I'll come back to where the themes are, but I just wanted to give you an introduction because we will also be talking today in groups about these themes in more detail. How do we put actions around these themes, around context and custodianship? Again, that's about community infrastructure, public realm. Around connections, that's about accessibility and movement, particularly transport, but others walking, cycling as well. Choice and character, which is around housing and land use and opportunities for jobs and economic growth, and governance.